Ahoy, my friends, Ryder here, and welcome back to another Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis video. Today, I'm going to be getting into the to pull or not to pull video for Sephiroth's new Limit Break Draw banner. This is a pretty sweet banner. Most anniversary banners are. You know, the fact that they are typically just one person on the banner, I think is great. And so that being said, let's get into it. I'm just going to go through everything, give you guys my opinion. Obviously, there's going to be a ton of FOMO over the next few weeks. But the first thing I want to point out is that this banner does not go away until April 9th, guys. That is over 1 month away from now, meaning that we will get all the banners from the anniversary before this banner goes away. So there is absolutely no reason to rush, pull the trigger for anything here, guys. The only other boon that you're going to get from this, other than the banner itself right now, is a bonus in the event. And in my experience, guys, you know, anniversary events are some of the easiest ones to complete over time. They're up for a very long period of time, so my first word of advice to you guys is, unless you're sitting on a buttload of crystals, definitely wait and pick and choose which banner you guys want to go for. Alright, so that being said, let's take a look at the actual animation for this new ability right here, Blade of the Worthy. Super sick. I want to look at that again, actually. Let's take a look at it again. Yeah, that is absolutely freaking awesome, guys. It is a really cool thing. This is actually Vincent's ultimate weapon cast right there. That one looks super cool as well. Let's take a look at the actual costume itself. And this costume looks so sick, guys. I love the freaking vibe of it. He's got a kind of Kuja thing going on. He's got like, looks like a serpent in his hair. He's got like the almost like scimitar crescent moon earrings. I love the kind of bronze goldish on black and silver. It's just dope, guys. He's got this kind of, you know, full like trench cloak on with the tattered edges, and I like these long like inner linings of it right here with the ornamentation on it. And then I like his boots. You know, they even went so far as to give him like the black nails right here as to like fully fit his vibe. Honestly, I think it's an awesome looking costume, guys. It's really cool. I like the gold like, I don't know what you would call them for the wrist, but whatever these are, wristlets, I know that's not what they're called. I'm sure one of you guys will let me know. And then the sword itself, guys, I feel like is really cool. It's not like overly done. You even have the materia slots on there as well. You know, I do like the pommel right here, which looks really cool. It's got a little feather, matches his hair. Not much of a guard, but he is a katana user. And then you have like the kind of, you know, pink into the blue right here on this curved blade. Overall, guys, I think it looks really cool. I think it is super cool. Now, let's actually take a look at the costume here. So the costume is going to give boost attack to all allies. I wouldn't say the best one. Obviously, physical attack all allies or magic attack all allies is obviously, in my opinion, better than this. But some people are getting maxed out on those, and it's good that it does have something. And I do like the fact that because it's boost attack all allies, it can work with any element, because Sephiroth has access to a bunch of elements, and we're going to go through that later on when I show you guys the weapons that you can actually wishlist for him that are elemental. So the fact that it's not actually linked to magic or physical, I think is actually better in this case. Then the second R ability here is really where it shines, Belt of the Worthy. It is a Omni Arcanum costume, guys. So we're going to get Fire, Ice, Lightning, Earth, Water, Wind ability damage plus 30%. The only character in the game that has seen this up until now is Tifa. It is a fantastic R ability on a costume. Like I said, guys, I am a huge advocate for costumes that have a wide expanse of use, and this is something that can be used easily, right? Like, we know that Sephiroth had 2 mastery costumes, right, that are now easily power crept. I don't think we'll ever see another mastery costume again in the game whatsoever, right? But he had a mastery costume for wind, and he had a mastery costume for fire. This essentially gives him the Arcanum for fire and for wind at the same time, right? Now, he has a water weapon. It is limited. It came with its own arcanum, so obviously you're not going to replace it for that. For earth, he has a Tempest style weapon, which is Sand Splitter. It does have its own earth arcanum, but this is nice to be able to have if you're like me and you wishlisted that weapon, but you never went for the costume. Same with Tempest, right? I went for the weapon for Tempest, like for the wish list, but I never went for the costume. I think the only element that he's actually missing here is lightning, right? Because he also has access to the edged wings. So this is a fantastic costume for Sephiroth, guys. Just like basically just the costume, I would say, is definitely worth it. The question is not, is it worth it? The question is, when would you go for it, right? Because like I said, this banner lasts until April 9th, so you're definitely going to want to wait until you know exactly what you want from this anniversary, right? So that being said, let's take a look at the actual stamp card. Make sure there's nothing out of the ordinary here. All right, so the first page looks normal, 5-star or higher guaranteed in stamp 4. We have the weapon here in stamp 6, costume stamp 12. Going to the second page, we do have the 3 guaranteed weapons right here, which is essentially guaranteeing you an OB3 copy of the sword by the second stamp card, right? But for many of you guys, I think just the first stamp card is going to be worth it in most cases. Like I said, the question of the day is when, right? And my advice is hold off for now unless you guys have a lot of extra crystals you're sitting on, right? So that being said, let's actually take a look at the weapon itself, all right? Blade of the Worthy. Let's see if this blade is truly worthy. All right, so OB1 right here, level 120. It's going to have 387 magic attack. It is a magic-focused weapon. The command ability is called Diving Scourge, 4 ATB cost, and at OB1, it will deal 650% magic non-elemental damage, base 5-star, 540%, all right? With a range of all enemies and a crit rate of 10%. This will also deal 20,000 additional non-elemental magic potency damage against all enemies. So many of you guys, we've seen this before. Tifa got a weapon that is like this. We have Cloud's Bahamut Greatsword. You know, in certain battles when the boss has like tentacles or there's ads, this type of weapon can be exceptionally good. I find that I use mine most often for farming, but there are definitely fights in the game where this kind of weapon comes in handy. However, do I think that you need one of these for every character? No, absolutely not. I think that if you have Tifa's already built up to at least OB6, right? Or Cloud's already built up to at least OB6, either one of them, if you have those weapons already, I think that you more or less don't need to go for this weapon for the first aspect of what this weapon brings to the table, which is AoE, magic non-elemental damage, and the additional flat damage on top of that, guys. So I don't think it's necessary to have a bunch of these different kind of weapons. I think if you just have one, you can more or less make it work with most of the bosses in the game. The great thing about this weapon is the secondary aspect of it, and the fact that it applies exploit weakness. All right, exploit weakness, for those of you guys don't know, gives you a potency buff that allows you to basically exploit the weakness of the enemy that you're fighting. So if you're fighting an ice enemy, you cast exploit weakness on yourself and you're going to do an extra 25% damage. It's not going to work against non-elemental enemies, but it will work against any elemental enemy, right? So it's basically a elemental potency buff against whatever element you're fighting, and so it pairs perfectly with the costume because you can essentially put this on any build: ice, lightning, fire, earth, wind, water, etc., and you're going to be able to cast exploit weakness on it, and the weapon doesn't need to even be at OB10 or even OB6 in order to get this buff on it, which is fantastic, guys. It's going to give him an extra way to do damage. Now, would you use this over his Shinra military sword as an offhand for, you know, wind damage with Dark Heavens? You know, that's another, like, that's another conversation at that point in time, because then you have to kind of pin together the pros and the cons of the offhand weapon, etc., and see what it is. But he does not have a Shinra military sword for any other element other than wind, and so basically for every other element, this would become either his main hand or likely his offhand, right? Which would allow him to exploit weakness and do more damage based on whatever weapons is in his main hand and whatever type of element he's fighting against. So super good. If we take a look at it back at base 5-star, you still have potency 25% on the exploit weakness, so just one copy of it, and the duration is 30 seconds with a duration extension of 10 seconds. Plus, when HP is 50% or more, that is when the ability is going to get cast. 50% or more is great. I don't really like 70 or more, but 50 we can definitely work with, all right? So at OB1, it's going to go to 35-second duration from 30. Okay, now we'll take a look here at OB6 in a second, guys. Now, the other thing I really like about this weapon are the R abilities here, guys. So boost attack all allies, which obviously works for either physical or magic. So the reason I really like this weapon is because it can be paired pretty much perfectly with either a physical or magical elemental main hand weapon, right? So whether you're using the physical Dark Heavens or you're using the magical Sand Splitter, right? This is going to work just as fine. The R abilities are going to support both builds, and I think it's a very complementary weapon to Sephiroth's kit. If you guys are a Sephiroth fan out there, this is, in my opinion, basically a must-have for his kit. But like I said, you have time to consider what you guys want to pull. You know, the first banner of the anniversary is always going to be super tempting, super FOMO, but we know that there is definitely some amazing things on the horizon. So keep that in mind with what you guys are pulling out there, right? You also want to take into consideration which of Sephiroth's swords you guys have built up until this point in time. You know, if you have a bunch of his swords already built, this is going to slot right in. But if you only have, you know, a couple of them built and they're like OB4 or OB5, you know, maybe it might not be as worthy right away, because you're going to have to wish list a lot of those weapons. You're going to have to wait over time to slowly build up his kit, but this is going to be an excellent weapon for him nonetheless. It just might take more time depending on how much of Sephiroth you have built up until this point. All right, so our abilities at OB1: boost attack all allies 32 points, boost ability potency 15 points. His support abilities are magic attack boost, and triangle sigil boost here. All right, now let's take a look at OB6. Magic attack 609. It's going to jump to 840% magic non-elemental damage, which is already surpassing Cloud's Bahamut Greatsword at OB10. So really good. It's going to deal 30,000 additional non-elemental damage. The exploit weakness here, right, which is the highlight of the weapon, is going to go to a potency of 35% at OB6, okay, which is really good. It's better than a high tier physical attack buff, which I believe is 30% by itself. So if you had the high tier buff plus this, you're looking at 65% extra damage. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the duration goes to 45 seconds for a buff, right? So a lot of times DPS, they're not going to really have any buff debuff duration extension. So you want long casting spells like this. So, you know, 35 seconds at OB1, definitely not bad. 30 seconds at base 5-star, a little bit trickier to work with, but 45 seconds, this is really getting to a sweeter spot. The duration is 15 seconds right here. All right, our abilities at OB6: boost attack at 40, boost ability potency at 27. So overall, super solid. And if we take it up to OB10, magic attack 664, honestly a little low. I thought it was going to be, honestly, I thought it was going to be in the 690s. So 664 is a tad lower than I thought, but the weapon is still fantastic. It's going to be dealing a whopping 1010% magic non-elemental damage with the 40,000 flat damage added to it. The exploit weakness goes to 40% here, boost at OB10. Absolutely insane. Duration 60 seconds right here, which is a whole minute. Absolutely great. We're going to have boost attack all allies 46 over boost ability potency 39. None of these are correlated to physical or magic damage. It can work with any type of build, like I said, guys, which is honestly like the bread and butter of this weapon. It is absolutely fantastic in my opinion, guys. It lives up to his original half anniversary weapon, the Protector's Blade, which I also thought was fantastic at the time. All right, now let's go over and go to the wish list right here. Let's go down to Sephiroth. I'm going to show you guys all the weapons here that this is going to work with, right? And you guys can basically check to see what you have, what you don't have. This is what I have right here. So you can see I've got a lot of these weapons, OB10, but not all of them, right? And a lot of the ones that it's really going to work with are right up here in the top row, guys. All right, I think Edged Wings is going to be a little bit lower, but let's go back and we're going to look at these one at a time. The first one right here, all right, is Withering Blaze. I'm just going to look at these straight at OB10. These are wish listable, so you know you're looking at the final result, what it's going to be. So this is going to give him 700% magic fire damage with a HP 50% or higher, plus a fire imperil that is going to go low to high. Obviously, this would be his main hand weapon, right? Magic attack, fire potency right here, and you would be chain casting this, so it's not really a huge deal that it goes low to high. Prefer if it was obviously high on the first cast. I think all of us do, but you can see right here that he does have access to a fire DPS weapon. Now, it does not have the highest damage here. This is the thing with Sephiroth, is that a lot of his weapons are DPS slash imperil weapons. He is a DPS slash breaker, right? So but what is this going to do? Is this going to allow him to be a secondary DPS in a team, getting that imperil off, still doing damage, because this is going to have a 1.2 times multiplier on this, right? So, you know, 10% of this is 70. So you would add 140. This is going to deal 140% when a buff is granted to self. So 840% damage, right? Then you're going to have the imperil. Then you're likely going to have a magic attack buff. And then you're going to have the exploit weakness on top of that. He's still going to be hitting pretty damn hard, guys. All right, now let's go to the next one right here. We'll take this one up to OB10. Sand Splitter, Blue Bramble, also 700% magic earth damage when HP is 50% or more. Earth Imperil high, all right? This one does less damage overall, but as you can see, it is a perfect pairing for this weapon, right? Then we have Tempest right here. This was the first of these kind of weapons. 700% physical water elemental damage, a HP 50% or more, water imperil high, right? As you guys are seeing, and then he has the Edgar's Blade, which, you know, is also a fantastic magic water elemental weapon. However, it's not wish listable at this point. If you missed it, you missed it. So Tempest is the one that you guys would be looking at, right? Then we have so let's look at Shinra's Military Blade. This one raises physical attack, and when HP is 50% or more, wind damage is increased. At OB6, it's a high wind damage buff, right? So, you know, probably I would still go for the new weapon over this, because you're likely going to have the team giving you physical attack up. The wind potency buff up at high is going to be great, but the exploit weakness is going to be stronger depending on the OB level of that weapon. Plus, I think the R abilities are going to be better as well. All right, now we take a look at Dark Heavens. This is what you would be likely pairing it with, right? This is his 800% physical wind damage weapon. On top of that, now you have a almost Arcanum for the wind with him. It's 30% instead of the 35%. Plus this weapon to pair it with. You know, you also have Radiant Edge you could pair it with, but likely you would want to be pairing it with this weapon instead, the Withering Blaze. And then he also has Edged Wings right here, guys. This was his very first weapon in the game. 800% magic ice damage. You could also pair it with this to exploit the weakness and do more damage with ice. And then I'm pretty sure that's basically it. He does have this lightning weapon, but I wouldn't really call it much of anything. 520% AoE damage. You know, it's something if you have nothing, but in my opinion, he's still missing lightning, guys. So as you guys can see, this weapon really complements Sephiroth's kit. And it's hard to say where he's going to go in the future. Is he going to keep on keeping these, you know, slightly lower overall damage percent weapons in order to keep things like Imperil? You know, At that point in time, you really need to incorporate buff duration into his kit. I think unless you're chain casting those weapons, in that case, you probably don't need to at all. But overall, guys, I would say that this weapon for most players at just OB1, I would say, you know, for the 35-second duration on the exploit weakness and the 25% potency on it, is probably going to be pretty amazing. So I can safely say I believe that pulling just this first stamp card for Sephiroth is likely going to be worth it, guys. That's what I would say. I think that even if I just had this weapon at OB1, right, and you got to take a look at your weapon parts, you might have a better chance of raising it up. I believe I have like 550 Sephiroth weapon parts, so, you know, getting this weapon to OB6 is something doable for me. But I don't believe this is a weapon like a DPS weapon where you absolutely need to have it at OB6 in order for it to perform. I think that even if you got a single copy of this weapon, it is going to serve its purpose in your kit. In a lot of fights, it's going to complement a lot of his weapons, and the costume is going to complement them on top of it, guys. So all in all, I think this is a fantastic banner. I think going through the first stamp card is great. If you guys have the extra crystals, go for it. If you guys are kind of tighter on crystals, definitely going to want to wait to see what you're going to do. Like I said, this banner ends on April 9th, so take your time, see what's coming out. You know, Vincent might get one of these costumes as well, guys, you know, so you might have to choose which character you rather would want to go with, right? So Vincent has stronger damaging elemental weapons, but he doesn't have as many of them. Sephiroth has the imperiling weapon, so he brings two things to the table, but he won't hit quite as hard. It's hard to say. We don't know exactly what's going to come out in the future, but I think that's basically my overall opinion on this, guys. You know, so that being said, you know, you really just got to check your own accounts. You got to see what you have to work with Sephiroth. And if you love the banner, if you're a huge Sephiroth fan, go for it. But like I said, if crystals are tight, and they likely are for many of us, just hold off and see what else is on the horizon for the anniversary. And, you know, you can always pull on it in 2 weeks, and you're still going to get it. So there's nothing to lose right there in waiting. So that being said, guys, that is going to conclude my banner review, my to pull or not to pull. I'm curious about your guys' thoughts. Please leave them in the comments below if you guys have, you know, other perspectives other than my own on the matter. I know it's always helpful for people to read everyone's comments and see different angles so that we can all make better choices in the game. So that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis content, and if you guys love high fantasy adventure novels, the 4th book in the book series that I've been writing for 15 years has just released Falling Tower Book 4 of the Curseborn Saga. There is a link in the description of this video if you guys want to check out that book and any of the other novels I've written in the past 15 years. That being said, I hope you guys all have a wonderful night. Take care and peace.